If you're writing a set of work instructions, clarity is key, right? You don't want anybody misunderstanding and doing the wrong thing. So what's important when we write clear work instructions is to really write for the actual user. Who will be using these instructions? They're a reader, but in the case of work instructions, they're a user too. So let's talk today in this first of 3 upcoming videos on writing clear, usable work instructions about our user. Today we're going to focus on writing for the person who will use the instructions, and that will include not only thinking about that person's reality, but thinking about clear language in general and what kind of words that we can use that make understanding almost immediate when somebody looks at that page of work instructions. So first video, here we go. We're going to talk all about how to consider who's using your instructions and how to make them work for that person. First concept here, who really is my user? And I'll use that word instead of reader throughout this and this series of videos. When I think about my user, I try to imagine the real, as they call it. Where are they in the moment? Are they holding the instructions in one hand and working with the other hand? Do they have the instructions up on their phone, on a computer, in a printout? How big does it need to be? How far away are they? What are they trying to do at the same time? Also, really importantly, what words do they use to describe the process they're doing? If you are the creator of a process, you might have used certain language as you created it. And maybe you're the engineer in a given scenario, for example, and you're using the words that are just right for you. However, easiest thing for our user is to use words that they would use anyway. So let's check out this example where I'm just going to make a couple of tweaks to make that language more relevant to the user versus the designer. It is imperative to remove unwanted surface contaminants from parts using the vertical laboratory fume extractor. We've started saying that something is important, but then it takes a while to learn what that something is. I can get rid of that slow lead-in, as we'll talk about later, and also use words that my reader would use. Maybe when I create this set of instructions, I'm thinking, well, that machine is called a vertical laboratory fume extractor. But what is it called on the floor? That's what we want to put in the work instructions. The user, if they use the word fume hood, we're going with that instead. All right, so let's look at some ways we can get more broad with this and look at other types of words that we need to consider as well. First concept, you do want to use plain language. This is a movement whereby we are trying to write language that's accessible to everyone. Now, if you're working with operators who need to follow a process, you really want your language to be accessible and super easy to digest, follow, remember, right? We don't want people doing the wrong thing. So let's use plain language to make it easy. Here's an example. And plain language is about using words that are familiar to us, right? Not words outside of our typical vocabulary. So maybe instead of this first one, let's think about using considerable care, place the parts that require cleaning into the high-frequency ultrasonic part cleaning tank. Let's talk about plain language. How can we reduce some of these concepts into shorter ways of saying them, and importantly, using words that are common and familiar to everyone, because that means less mental bandwidth, right? Even if your reader is a really high-level reader, they're still really busy and probably stressed and trying to do the work while they use these instructions. So we always want to use that easy-to-access language. I'm going to say carefully place the parts. That's more like how we would talk in regular life. The parts to be cleaned in the part cleaning tank. Again, taking care, is that what the tank is referred to by people actually doing the process? Next strategy, you want to always say who's going to do something and what are they going to do. In a work instruction, this is even more crucial than other kinds of writing. Who will do a step? And what will that step be? That's the whole thing. That is the who and what of your sentence. I always advocate when you want to be clear and concise, you put that who and what at the very beginning. That's just sort of an automatic way to make your sentence concise. You don't have to edit a long sentence. The fluff disappears with this trick. Let's try it out. It is the responsibility of the analyst to enter the analyzed data in the log as dictated by SOP 46B. If I want to pull up who's going to do something to the very beginning, I'm going to end up with something like this. Analysts must log, analyze data based on this SOP, right? What's good about this, a few things. It's more concise to lead with who and what, but we can imagine too a user who might be scanning this document, looking for the steps they need. When we have those command verbs and those who's down the left, we've got analysts log right away. It's easy for me to see, oh, hey, I'm an analyst. This must be my step. So lead with that who and that what. Secondly, we already talked about this in the first example, but the slow lead-ins do not help. Those are just words that add words, but not necessarily add meaning. That is a potential for confusion now, right? Readers might try to make their own meaning if they're not sure. It is of the highest importance that. It is of the highest importance. 7 words where I haven't really said anything. I'm going to kind of assume if something is in your work instruction, it's probably important, and we don't need to say that. So instead of it is of the highest importance that users clean the area after use, let's pull our who and what into the beginning. Who's our who right now? It's you, the user, the reader. You, hey you, please clean. Please clean the area after use. We don't need a slow lead in, so we don't need any kind of it is important to, this is a reminder that, or anything. We want to get to the who, who's going to do it, and the verb of what they're going to do as quickly as we can. And then a last tip for this first video, and then we'll wrap it up with kind of what does this all mean. Provide 1 thought per sentence. You may hear people talk about sentence length sometimes, and you hear the advice, keep sentences under 20 words, which is great advice. What's also important though is the mental load that the sentence asks of the user or the reader. And so the easiest way to keep your sentences easy mental load is to just put 1 thought per sentence. Try not to put 2 or 3 important thoughts in the same sentence, because now the user is trying to remember and weigh which is really the most important. So here's an example of how we can easily just break a long sentence into 2, right? In order to reduce wear and tear on the part cleaning machine, it is crucial to only place up to 5 parts in the machine simultaneously. Well, that had a lot going on. Something is important, wear and tear might be happening, we have 5 pieces, there's a machine, etc. Maybe I can do 1 main thought per sentence. Place 5 parts or fewer in the part cleaning machine at a time. This will reduce wear and tear. So I did divide into 1 thought per sentence. I also changed the order because I thought, well, logic might dictate that before that chronology, cause and effect. If you do this, this will happen, right? So what does all of this come down to? Let's wrap up with the most important concept of all here. What can we do to help our user reduce that mental load? We're all busy. We all have competing worries, usually all day long. And we can imagine someone at the operating table, at the manufacturing table, in the process, with all the different things they might have on their mind that other people have said to them, things going on that are distracting. Keep your writing easy to digest. And we're going to talk about more ways to do this in our upcoming parts 2 and 3 that'll help you really write the content and design your documents. With this first one, we're suggesting that you think through who will use this document and what are some simple ways that I can edit my writing to make that more easy for them. So please let us know what your questions are. I'd love to help you through this process. If you leave me a comment, I'll answer you right away. Thanks for being here, and good luck working on your SOPs and your work instructions.